Hey guys, welcome. This is sensation. We always teach perception and sensation at the same time. They do go hand in hand, like peanut butter and jelly and peanut butter and chocolate. And so here, let's talk about the difference. First of all, sensation, look at the root, senses. So you may think that you have five senses, like I wrote on this page, but in reality, we have more than five senses, and we'll talk about them. But think about sight, hearing, touch, taste, and it's going to seem a little bit like a biology class for a little bit in this chapter. Perception, on the other hand, is what your mind does with those senses. So, what goes in the eyes, they might create an optical illusion. That's perception. But the fact that it just goes in the eyes, that's sensation. Ow, pain is a sensation. Touch is a sensation. So, let's talk about what is the minimum that we need to register a sensation. Well, it's a fancy word, but it's called absolute threshold. Think of absolute meaning minimum. Okay. It's like that is the minimum, absolute minimum that you need to register a stimulus. Okay. So half the time, half the time. So, how dim can something be before we're at the absolute threshold? Well, some people with a lot of time on their hands actually either really did this or they just estimated based on the biology. They say that the absolute threshold is seeing a candle flame 30 miles away on a clear night. Imagine you're in the mountains and there's a mountain 30 miles away, and then somebody lights a candle. On average, a person can see that half the time. Hearing, how low can you go, meaning volume wise, that you could still hear it? Well, hearing a watch ticking 20 feet away, apparently you can hear that half the time. Now, of course, my hearing isn't very good, so my absolute threshold will be higher than an average teenager because I went to a lot of rock concerts and I just can't hear jack. Okay. Touch. How soft can I touch before you can only feel it half the time? Well, feeling a bee's wing falling from a distance of 1 centimeter on your cheek. Wow, that's oddly specific. Smell. One drop of perfume in a 3-room apartment. So think about this. Do girls or guys have a better sense of smell? Girls have a better sense of smell, so they have a higher or a lower absolute threshold. Girls, since they are more sensitive to smells, they have a lower absolute threshold. They can smell things better than guys. And taste. 1 teaspoon of sugar dissolved in 2 gallons of water. I can't see that, but 2 gallons of water. So any less than that, it's going to be below the average absolute threshold. Of course, you do have super tasters. That's different. If you're a super taster, then your absolute threshold will be lower or higher? Lower. Okay, more sensitive. Difference threshold. So earlier we had absolute threshold. Now we have difference threshold. Can you tell the difference between two things? So this is a common game you might see in bars and stuff where you put $1 in a machine and then it's like, how many differences can you detect between the two pictures? Hit pause on the video and see how many differences do you see. Okay, let me give you the answer. That's the answers, okay? So again, it's just a game. I'm not particularly good at it. I believe girls are better at this than guys are, okay? Can you tell the difference between a fake or a real Louis Vuitton purse? Okay, the only reason I know is because I read the answer on the internet. Okay, now check out this little thing I saw on the internet. This guy, if this is even serious, how much sawdust can you put in a Rice Krispie treat before people notice? So what's he measuring here? 2 Rice Krispie treats. Can you tell the difference? As far one has more sawdust than the other, that would be difference threshold. Difference threshold, the minimum. By the way, restaurants take advantage of this difference threshold. Let's say you've got a really good restaurant that's got good food, and then some big corporation takes over, and then they start cutting corners. Well, maybe if we use this kind of cheese it's a little bit cheaper and save us millions of dollars a year, will people notice? What if we use a different quality of meat? What if we use a crappier ketchup brand? Will people notice? And then what they do is they start cutting corners and start cutting corners, and what they're hoping is that you don't notice. Well, after they cut too many corners, people do start noticing, and then people wonder, how come we don't go to this restaurant anymore? Because they suck now, because they kept cutting corners, thinking that you wouldn't notice. They're taking advantage of the difference threshold of people. So let's check this out. The intensity at which a sound becomes audible for a given individual is known as the individual's what? Hit pause. The answer is the absolute threshold. That is the minimum you need to register a stimulus. All right, the minimum intensity at which a stimulus can be detected at least 50% of the time is known as the what? Hit pause. The answer is absolute threshold. Okay. Subliminal is below threshold. The idea is that you just don't register it. Like this is a subliminal advertisement. You get a little dollar sign here in what looks to me like a Burger King ad. And supposedly it makes you think unconsciously that Burger King is a good value. There's no evidence that subliminal advertising works. Here's another example. Apparently it says SEX. I don't buy it. It doesn't work. It's not going to make you want to buy this gin, but it's just interesting. So I threw that in there. Okay, now I've seen this on the AP exam a lot. Sensory adaptation. So let me ask you something. Can you feel your underwear right now? Maybe, maybe not. Do you have some jewelry on, like a ring? Can you feel it? The answer is probably not. Why? Because your nerves go numb. Okay. So imagine like you get into a hot bathtub and then your nerves get real numb, or you jump into cold water and your nerves get numb, and it just doesn't feel uncomfortable anymore. That would be an example of sensory adaptation. Let me give you some more examples. Hit pause if you want to look at that. Now, go to the mall and go ask the people who work at Lush and say, can you smell this? Because they've been working there for a while. I did that once, and the employee said, nah, I can't smell anything. It's because their nerves are getting numb. Okay? Habituation, I used to think that it means the same thing as sensory adaptation. But the reality is that they're not exactly the same thing. Look at the root word, habit. So habituation is your enemy to happiness. Okay, you get used to it. Okay, you get bored with it. So think about this. Sensory adaptation is sensation. However, habituation is perception, because perception is all in your head. Okay, so imagine this. Imagine you won the lottery, and you won a big lottery like $300 million. Okay, a big lottery. Do you really think you're going to be any happier in the long run? You habituate. Okay, basically, it's kind of like when you get a new phone. Okay, you get a new phone and it's like the most awesome feeling in the world. Oh yeah, I got a new phone. And you peel the new protective covering off and it feels so great. But then after a month you're like, yeah, I like my phone, but you just don't, you habituate to it. Okay, so the next time you think if moving to a new city will make you happier, or getting a new car will make you happier, you might want to consider the possibility that it won't. Okay, because we habituate, we get used to it, and then the dopamine just drops off, and the newness wears off. Okay, so again, in review, sensory adaptation, your nerves go numb. Habituation is you get bored with it, you get used to it. Okay, hit pause if you want to look at that some more. All right, so let's take a look here. The concept of habituation is best exemplified by which of the following situations? Hit pause, take a look at the answers. The answer is B. So you just get used to it, okay? Bo's dog used to run away from loud music. Over time, the dog stopped running away from the sound. Okay, so the dog is just getting used to it. The answer is B. If you get if you live near the highway, you kind of get used to the noise. Okay. On his first day of work at the bakery, Brad was nearly overwhelmed by the sweet odor of the baked goods. Now he can't even smell it. The answer is B. Okay, because your nerves go numb. Okay. After constant exposure to a stimulus, our nerve cells fire less frequently. This is sensory adaptation. Okay. A person is asked to listen to a series of tones presented in pairs. Ding, ding, and asked to say whether the tones in each pair are the same or different in pitch. So what are we measuring here? This is, the answer is C. Okay. Maria arrives at a park that is located very close to a factory. We've already done this one a couple of times. Okay. Infants are repeatedly shown an object dropping onto a platform. Eventually, the infants spend less time looking at the object, and their heart rates and respirations decrease. Okay, so the answer is either A or B. So now let me ask you something. Are their nerves getting numb, or are they just getting bored? The answer is B. Okay. All right, now this is going to seem like a physics class. Transduction is the conversion of one form of energy to another. So, for example, light waves are leaving your computer screen and hitting your eyes, and then your eyes transform that into neural impulses. That's transduction. Noise coming from my trachea is coming to your ear, and your ear is taking those vibrations and changing it into neural impulses. That is transduction. Okay? So let's talk about vision. Hit pause and take a look at this and even write it down. You need to pretty much know what all of the green boxes are. Okay, so if you touch your eyeball, you're touching the cornea. That's an outer protective layer. When you say you have green eyes or brown eyes, that is the iris. The hole is the pupil, and the pupil can get bigger, dilate, or it can constrict, depending on how much light there is. The retina is in the back of the eye. The retina is very important. The retina is where transduction occurs. It's where it takes light and changes it into neural impulses. Okay, now this is important here, down here. In the retina, you have rods and you have cones. Cones process color. Okay, cones, color. Rods deal with black and white. So if you are walking around at night and you're using your night vision, you're using your rods or cones. You're using your rods. Cones, you use your cones pretty much in the daytime because there's not a lot of color to process at night. Everything at night in the dark is pretty black and white. Also, you have a blind spot. Now, that's one thing I really can't demonstrate to you over the computer, but there is a spot in the back of your eye where there are no rods and cones. And you don't realize it because you have two eyes, okay? And one eye compensates for the other eye. But in person, in class, I can demonstrate to you that you have a blind spot. You cannot see. If you have one eye, there is a spot here where you cannot see. Because that is where there are no rods and cones. It's where you have the optic nerve leaving the back of your eye, and there are no rods and cones there. The fovea is a place in the back of your eye where there is a lot of cones are there. A lot of cones are there. So it's like right in the back of the eye. So in the daytime, when you see something that you want to really look at, you look directly at it in the daytime. Why? Because the fovea has a lot of cones. Look at all these cones that process color that's in the fovea. Also notice on this diagram of the back of your eye, you have a lot of rods. But notice that in the periphery, in the outer edge of the back of your eye, you have a very few cones, but you have a lot of rods. What that means is that if you are walking around at night and you want to see something that's really cool, don't stare directly at it. Any astronomer knows that when you want to look at something faint, like a galaxy or a nebula, you take your binoculars and you look just to the side of it and it actually gets brighter. Because look, your rods are in your peripheral vision. So you don't look directly at it at night. You look just to the side of it, and you can see it better at night because the rods are in the periphery, in the peripheral vision, in the outer edge. You don't look directly at it. But in the daytime, if you want to look at something that's in color, you look directly at it. Okay. Why do pupils dilate? To let in more light. Also because of drugs and because of sexual attraction. Those are 3 reasons why pupils dilate. Okay. All right. So which of the following is true about the blind spot in the eye? Hit pause. The answer is A. The fovea has the greatest visual acuity in bright light, primarily because the fovea is, hit pause. The answer is E, only cones. Cones, color. Carla noticed that in the early evening, she begins to have difficulty seeing the vibrant colors in her artwork. What explains this? Hit pause with the space bar. The answer is, okay, so cones don't work well at night. Rods do, but not cones. Visual acuity is best in the what? Like how good can you see? The answer is fovea, because that's where the cones are. In the dark, an object is more clearly seen when viewed in peripheral vision than when viewed directly. This phenomenon occurs because the rods located in the retina are what? Okay, hit pause. The answer is A. Okay. All right, this is way more than I ever want to teach about the parts of the eye, but this is the retina. So notice you've got your rods and cones here. Now notice the arrows here. So what happens is light bypasses all of this and hits the rods and the cones first, then hits the bipolar cells. I think bipolar cells are for motion, like detecting motion and stuff. Then they go to the ganglionic cells. And notice that the ganglionic cells are yellow, just like the optic nerve is. So then the message hits the rods and the cones first, then the bipolar cells, then the ganglionic cells, and then the message is taken to the occipital lobe in the back of the brain. Okay, that's more than I ever wanted to know about the parts of the eye, but there you go. So your occipital lobe, occipital, optical, in the back of your brain deals with vision. Okay, remember your left eye is processed on the right side of your occipital lobe because it goes through the thalamus in the middle. Okay, same thing here. The primary visual cortex is located in the occipital optical. Occipital optical. Feature detectors are neurons that are turned on or off by specific features of visual stimuli like edges and movement. Where in the visual system are these feature detectors located? I had to look this one up, but the answer is A. I just didn't know. One hint is that it asked about neurons, and neurons are in the brain. I don't know if that's absolutely true, but anyway, but that's the A is the answer. Which of the following is true regarding visual information processing? Okay, rewind the video and go back and look at that picture of the parts of the eye. I had trouble with this question, but the answer is C. Yeah, just, whew, that's way too much information. Okay, all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, why do we have two theories of color vision? Okay, and you need to be familiar with these two. First of all, you have opponent process theory. So what this says is this. You have cones, okay? You've got red and green cones. You've got blue and yellow cones. And you've got white and black. That's confusing to me, but anyway, these are opponent colors. And it explains something called after images. So basically, what'll happen is this. If you stare at something blue, and then your blue cones are going to get tired, and then you look at some white piece of paper or white screen, and then you'll get this brief flash of yellow. Same thing if you stare at something green, and then you look at something white, and then you'll get this brief flash of red. Okay, those are called after images. So remember, black and white, Christmas colors, red and green, and blue and yellow. So hit pause here. If you stare at what looks like an IKEA design, and then glance your vision over here, you should see an after image. Okay, same thing here. If you stare at this one and then look at the white screen, you should see a red box with a green X. All right, hit pause and do that, moving right along. So these are all after images that I like to do in class. Hit pause, stare at this area for about 20 seconds, and then boom. And blink your eyes, blink your eyes. You should see Jesus, because black turns to white and white turns to black. Okay. You stare at Obama's nose for about 20 seconds, and then boom, you should see Obama's face in color. That's called an after image. Same thing here. Stare at it for 20 seconds, and then boom. Same thing here, and then same thing here. So think about this. What is yellow going to turn to? Blue. What's black going to turn to? White. Okay. And this greenish color is going to turn red. Okay. And then there's another theory of color vision called the trichromatic theory. Tri, like a tricycle, has three wheels. Tri means three. It means three colors. The idea is that, and this is just a theory, that you've got red cones, green cones, and I guess blue cones. And what'll happen is that this can explain color blindness. So if one of your cones isn't working, then you're colorblind. So the idea is that if you mix these three colors in together, you can get millions of combinations of colors. Okay, old televisions do that. Okay, so for example, color blindness. If your red cone doesn't work, then you can't see the number on this screen. Okay, then you are colorblind. Okay, now what is color blindness? Well, dogs are colorblind, but that doesn't mean that they see in black and white. It means that they see in sepia. It means they don't see red. So if you're throwing a red ball to the dog might have a little more trouble seeing it. It'll find it, don't worry. But the point is that dogs don't see red. Okay? That means they don't see orange too. Okay? All right. So which of the following supports the opponent process theory of color vision? Hit pause. The answer is after images. They support the theory of opponent process theory. If Carmelita stares at a red spot for 1 minute, then shifts her gaze to a white piece of paper, she is likely to experience an after image that is what? Okay, think Christmas colors. Red and green. Christmas colors. The most common form of color blindness is related to deficiencies in the, so I'm thinking back to that number 29 earlier, and I'm thinking that was red. The answer is B. Negative after images are explained by the opponent process theory. Red and green, blue and yellow. Okay. All right. Woo, I hate this question. Which of the following describes the correct order of information processing in vision? Okay, hit pause. So think about this. What goes last? Optic nerve. So that rules out B. Okay. What comes first? Rods and cones come first. Okay. So that rules out A and D. All right. The answer is C. So go back and look at this if you need to. And that's it. Okay. All right. Vestibular sense. So imagine if you blindfold me and then you throw me in your trunk of your car. I could still feel the bumps on the road. I can still get dizzy because I have a what's called a vestibular sense. It's a sense of balance. Okay. I mean, imagine going to Six Flags and riding a roller coaster blindfolded, or one that's inside and it's dark inside. You could still feel the ups and the downs. That's your vestibular sense. It is based from your what are called semicircular canals. That's where transduction occurs, is in your semicircular canals. Okay. So hit pause and read that and check that out. Okay. All right. What happens is that inside your ear, there are these little tiny hairs inside these tubes. And when you're going up and down, the fluid hits the little hairs and then triggers a sensation. So the blue things on here give you the spinning sensation. And then those stacks at the bottom give you the bouncy, bouncy situation. If you have vertigo, you probably have a problem with your vestibular sense and with your semicircular canals. Hearing, also called audition. I don't teach that anymore. I probably should, but I don't. Basically, with sound, you get low wavelength, then you get low tones. But if you get high tones, you get high wavelength, higher pitch. Okay. Amplitude deals with volume, low amplitude. High amplitude, amplitude. Think of an amplifier, it makes it louder. Okay. All right. So the ear. And by the way, look at that. Those are these semicircular canals. They have nothing to do with hearing. They have to do with your vestibular sense and your balance. So what happens is that there's a noise and then it creates vibrations in the air. Those vibrations go into the ear canal and then the eardrum vibrates. The eardrum vibrates. And then it transfers the vibrations to these bones here. And these bones are going to transfer vibrations to the cochlea. And then the cochlea will transfer the nerve impulse to the auditory nerve, and then hearing goes to your temporal lobes, both of them. So what goes in one ear actually goes to the thalamus and then to both temporal lobes. Okay? So read that. Okay? Read that. Hit pause and read that. These are ossicles. Ossicles are bones of the inner ear that includes hammer and other things that I don't really have memorized. Okay. The cochlea. The cochlea, it kind of looks like a Cinnabon. It kind of looks like a snail shell, but the cochlea is where transduction occurs. So sounds enter your ear, and then those vibrations go to the cochlea after they hit the ossicles and the eardrum and all that. And then it's changed into neural impulses. Then it goes to the thalamus and then to your temporal lobes. Cochlea. Okay. So you've got your cochlea here, and then you've got your semicircular canals, which don't have to do with hearing. And then you've got your ossicles, the bones. Why do we have two ears? Well, sound localization. If a sound is coming from here, then it's going to hit this ear at like a tenth of a second faster than it's going to hit this ear. So then your brain does the math and know that it came from that direction. That's called sound localization. The two major cues we use to localize sound sources in space, the intensity and timing differences. Balance is influenced by the cochlea. A sound is often detected by one ear more intensely and a fraction of a second earlier than it is detected by the other ear. These cues help individuals determine the location. Hue means color, so I don't teach this anymore, maybe I should, but the pitch has to do with wavelength, and with light, wavelength makes color. Okay, shorter wavelengths make blue, longer wavelengths make more red colors. I just didn't teach that. Which of the following structures is part of the vestibular system? Vestibular system. The answer is B. If you said D, that's the cochlea, and that's hearing. That's audition. That's not vestibular. The area labeled A contains the what? The answer is ossicles, the bones. Hearing loss. I've only seen one question on this before, but it's interesting. Conduction hearing loss is caused from damage to the eardrum, damage to the ossicles, things like that. Sensory neural hearing loss is damage to the nerves and to the cochlea. And if you have sensory neural hearing loss, maybe you can get a cochlear implant where they go in and give you a machine for a cochlea. All right, go back and look at your notes and go back and look at that slide earlier if you need to, but this is the only time I've ever seen this on the AP exam. Damage to which of the following best explains conduction deafness? So go for the mechanical stuff like the bones, the ossicles. The general function of the bones in the middle ear, the ossicles, is to, the answer is D. All right, let's talk about taste. So, is taste nature or is it nurture? The answer is both. Now, by the way, we always talk about smell and taste together. We all know. All right, so let's talk about smell. I'm sorry, I keep going back and forth. All right, olfaction means smell. You got to remember that, okay? If you remember that, that'll get you a question right. Olfaction means smell. So, when you breathe something in, it goes to your nasal cavity, and then there is a part of your brain in the frontal lobe called the olfactory bulb. Okay, I'll show you that in a second. By the way, smell and taste go together. Okay, so if you have a stuffy nose, you're not going to be able to taste anything. That's because of sensory interaction. Taste and smell go together. Okay, so if you want to eat something like medicine that you don't want to taste, you hold your nose. And we think that that works, and maybe it does. I don't know. So taste and smell are both chemical senses. They both are related to each other. What is the central muscle involved in taste? The tongue. Okay. We also, when we talk about taste, we talk about gustation. Gustation. We have bumps on our tongue, and the bumps are called papilla, and then the taste buds are on the papilla. We have four basic tastes: sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. There is a fifth one that we need to add called umami, and that is the meaty mushroom miso soup kind of thing that you get from Doritos. That's umami. It's kind of a meaty mushroom flavor, but these are the 4 basic ones from the book. Okay. Now, let's not forget nurture. All right, what tastes good in some cultures does not taste good in other cultures. Those are guinea pigs on the left. In Peru, they roast guinea pigs all the time. All right, the rods and cones are division as the taste buds are to what? So what is taste? Gustation. Gustatory receptors are sensitive to all the following taste qualities, except for, and the answer is D. Spicy is a chemical reaction. It is not a taste. Okay. It is assumed that an individual described as a super taster is, I didn't teach you this one. Hit pause if you want to try it yourself, but the answer is D, which is a little confusing to me because spice isn't a taste, but if you have more sensitivity on your tongue, then you are going to be more sensitive to hot peppers. Super tasters are people with a lot of taste buds, and they're the kind of people who are real picky when they're growing up, but then they grow up to be actually very interesting eaters, and they're very good tasters. They can taste a lot of different stuff. Their just noticeable difference is very low. They can tell the difference. They can discriminate. They have discriminating tastes. There, I just reviewed 3 chapters for you. When Rosa has a cold, she cannot taste the flavor of her pizza. Which of the following terms describes Rosa's inability to taste? The answer is E. But what about smell? Remember, smell is olfaction, and it is not lateralized. What that means is that lateralization means like it goes in one eye, but then is processed on the opposite side of the brain. Smell goes straight to the olfactory bulb in the frontal lobe. Now, look at this chart. Do men or women have a lower absolute threshold for smell? Women have a lower absolute threshold for smell. They can smell better than guys do. Okay. Now, can you smell the difference between men and women? We're not absolutely sure. Pheromones, I've never seen it on the test, but it's interesting. Some animals do have pheromones, but we haven't found one for humans. But pheromones are apparently chemical messengers that are picked up through our sense of smell. And I don't want to get into it, but we do pick up things through our sense of smell. Receptors for olfaction are located, so you need to know what olfaction is in the nose. Kinesthetic sense. I've never seen this on the AP exam, but kinesthetic, think of bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Howard Gardner. Kinesthetic is like, can you touch your elbow without looking? I'm not even looking, I can do it. Okay, that's kinesthetic sense. It's in your joints, it's in your muscles. Receptors for kinesthesis are located in the joints. Okay. Hip pause, this is an interesting question. Which sense is least involved in enabling you to maintain your balance when you stand on one foot? Hip pause. The answer is B, unless you smelled a fart and lost your balance. Whoa, but otherwise it's B. The thalamus processes information for all of the following senses except for, the answer is A, because it goes straight to the frontal lobe, to the olfactory bulb. I've never seen this yet on the AP exam, but the gate control theory says that we have trouble having pain in 2 places at once. So if you get shot twice, you're probably not going to feel twice as much pain. As a matter of fact, if I ever stump my toe, I might slap myself, and it actually helps my pain from stomping my toe. I've done that before. Okay, so if you burn this arm, slap the other one, and it'll help you with your pain. Okay, so the theory that best accounts for the experience of pain is the gate control. Gate meaning like it shuts off the pain or it opens it up. It's either open or shut. Okay, that is it, and hope that was useful.